Welcome to the fourth episode of the Comic Roundtable. We talk about comics, upcoming comic-related media, news and rumors, or sometimes just yap. I'm your co-host Ethan. This is Chris. Say hi.
Hey.
And that's Tom.
Yeah. And we
Tom.
got a guest here.
Yeah, we got a special guest this episode. T.S Luther. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself and let the audience know what you're all about?
Hi, I'm T.S and I write comics. Thank you so much for having me. I write comics, as the name implies, for Can'tBeKilledCreations.com and all over places on the internet. If you like comic books, come check me out. Can't Be Killed Comics on the TikTok and nowhere else, because I'm 90 and I don't know where the social media people hang out anymore. But my new comic book, Tokyo Fire, is out soon. You can pre-order it right now on Can'tBeKilledCreations.com. Go do it, cowards.
That's awesome.
Yes, sir.
And is that getting physical and digital, or is that digital only?
Of course. What do you think? I'm an amateur here? You think I come on this podcast pimp a digital comic?
Yeah.
Listen. I don't need this for you. You know, I have lots of podcasts beating down my door to have me on a Monday night. So, but no, it's coming out physical soon. That's what the delay is about. Is digitally it's ready to go, but you got to make sure you get those proofs. You don't want a big mishap like what happened over at Lucky 33 Comics with those guys. Can't believe they did that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So sorry for the disrespect, Mister. Before we move on to our episode question, you may notice. Well, you probably don't notice because who listens to this pod anyway? Not me. But we are a week late. We had to postpone a week. Some stuff. Yeah. I mean, I just set it on in the background. My dog falls asleep to it. It works. But so sorry for being a week late, but we promise we were getting stuff in order. We're gonna try to shake some things up, push this podcast more. Things are gonna get better on this pod. I'm
not even advertising on my TikTok yet. We don't know.
Yeah, I honestly keep forgetting. Advertisement is hard, apparently. Yeah. Yeah. But the episode question, I definitely didn't forget about this, so let's hop into it.
Just one question, man. You're off the pod.
Look, man, I had a lot going on this week, okay? No, but what is your favorite superhero pet? Like, just an animal that acts as a superhero, or an animal owned by a superhero of some sort.
So it can't be an animal.
Yeah, just any animal.
Any? Okay.
That's owned by a superhero type person.
Yeah. I mean, does Detective Chimp count? Because he's like best pals with John Constantine.
He's not really a pet though.
That is true.
I'd say probably Bitewing.
Oh, I love Bite. I love that they chose a pit bull specifically because a little fact about me, I freaking love pit bulls. I hate that they're stereotyped so much. But pit bulls are great.
I guess
I gotta go with Bat Cow. I mean, he's pretty dope.
Oh, Bat Cow's such a good.
That's a good choice.
Yeah. I love that Damian, by the time he officially becomes Robin, has like a few animals. Like,
he's got a whole barnyard in the Batcave.
Yeah, it's great, and that's not even counting the one like dragon-like creature he had before becoming Robin, because it didn't live in the Batcave.
Yeah,
I forget what it's called.
What was Kitty Pryde's dragon's name?
Oh. It was, I just remember that in the New Mutants movie, they gave it to Magic for some reason.
Dude, why do you gotta do that? Why you gotta spring that on me? That still hurts.
I'm pretty sure it's from Limbo, to be fair. But at the same time, it was never hers in the comics, as far as I know.
But I like that one, but also I think the best answer and the most correct answer, because it's also a real boy, is Comet, Supergirl's horse.
Oh, is that really a pet? Because they also did the Dirty Dance.
Listen, that's what makes it the best pet. Services all needs.
I remember reading Woman of Tomorrow and getting to that part, and I was like, they're not gonna. Okay, they're not. They're not. Oh, they did. Wait, did she? What? Wait, I was so confused.
I'm a 90s
What
kid, so like I grew up with Sailor Moon, and there's a really similar story with Sailor Moon's daughter, Chibi Moon. Yeah, so like that's kind of like a touchstone for me, and Silver Age comics is kind of where I started. So I like Comet for other reasons, the low-hanging fruit aside. You got a badass friend who's gonna follow you across the universe and let you ride on them. Like the best bet ever. Oh wow, yeah, double entendre. Did not mean to do that, but
hey,
oh no.
Remember how in Supergirl's first appearance, Jimmy Olsen wished her into existence to be Superman's girlfriend and wife?
Cousin, same thing, okay?
And
like
when
middle
she
of the country.
became his cousin, they didn't immediately drop it when she became his cousin.
He's from the middle of the country, okay? Like it
was just I mean, not that I guess.
Listen, I grew up near lots of farms. There was a lot of questions. You got to figure out who's your cousin and who's not your cousin really early on. And Superman's from Krypton. He had a little bit of a learning curve.
I'm gonna go with the basic answer, crypto.
Coward.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a good boy.
Listen, there's lots of good boys, but he's also a bootlicker.
Wait, hold on. There's one more I learned about that's like kind of a pet. Like I just read this. I have to open this book to like remind myself what the name of the stupid thing was. But it was in the Amazing Spider-Man Zeb Wells run. It's like this giant creature from an alien planet, and they can grow to immense sizes, but not on the planet it's from, right? And it wanted to protect its like kid it had, but the kid died, and when it returned to the planet, like it found it dead in war. It has a really tragic story.
He sees as he laughs.
Huh?
So you see that as you were laughing. It's real tragic.
I mean, it's just because like I'm taking this conversation about pets to an abused animal, essentially.
And that's very funny. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's a great...
Gog was its name.
I got
It's from
Super
the
Good Woman
Amazing
of Tomorrow
Spider-Man.
Lady. I can't wait to start it now. I know there's a horse in it.
Yeah. A horse that she did the dirty dance with twice.
You don't know what they did. You weren't in the room.
And you were?
I'm just saying we don't know. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered.
Yes. Just admit it. You like women who can handle a horse.
That's a strong statement. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think whatever they want to do is fine. And I think that they were in love, and he wasn't always a horse. That's what I'm saying. That's the statement that
I think he was a horse when they did it.
I didn't read that page. I think you might have scrolled over to Tumblr or Wattpad.
My bad. Chris opening up his Rule 34 tab.
My bad. That was
exactly.
That was Tom. That was Tom's fan fiction I read by mistake. My bad.
Yeah.
Oh god, now I have to kick both of you off the podcast.
It was on Tumblr.
Why?
It's just gonna be
I don't
you
want
and
the smoke.
Don't worry, TS. You're safe. You're a guest. We have to be nice to you.
We don't want the second guest you've ever had. Is this what you want?
Yeah.
You're the second guest.
Yes.
I'm taking this out of Chris's hands.
Okay. Hey,
No
we
more horses.
moving on to the next segment. Comic book club. What's your favorite thing you've read since we last recorded, and TS just thing you've read recently? Me personally, I read some Superman. Some Miles Morales stuff. His Clone Saga. Because if you didn't know, Miles got a Clone Saga of his own.
Oh god.
And it was much shorter. It didn't last like 2 years. Okay, it's like not even a full
Clone
trade.
Saga is still lasting, bro. Ben Riley's still around.
I know, but like the official title of the Clone Saga isn't on the books anymore.
Is this the Cody Ziegler thing?
The what?
Cody Ziegler or Saladin Ahmed? for the writer.
You cut out a
Ahmed,
bit,
the
but
Ahmed.
Yeah.
Yeah. The 2018 series. I know his clones have come back, like they're still around, but I just read the trade of his Volume 5 of the 2018 series. It was great because it was like, one, didn't drag on forever like the original Clone Saga, and two, still like did the stuff like it still was refreshing for clones. Like it wasn't that it took the typical cliches for clone stories, but like did a good spin on them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, considering Chris liked it, it must be terrible. Now moving on to
Shut
the
up.
stuff that I read. I've been reading Justice League from the New 52 era, which is pretty controversial because it's New 52. But I'm enjoying it for the most part. It's pretty good. I think I'm about 2/3 of the omnibus, the first one.
So how is Wonder Woman written in the Justice League series? Because I've read her New 52 stuff and a couple other things. Like,
Right.
is she
yeah.
better
in
in this?
Justice League? She's basically just a one-dimensional killing machine in the body of Wonder Woman. She's not really.
She's got a big
that's
ass
a
sword.
shame.
A sword and a big.
She looks cool, at least. I get, yeah.
Yeah, the costume
Yeah,
design's
it's
not
good.
terrible, but like the Justice
yeah,
League run kind of did her dirty in that.
Oh yeah.
Honest, all the runs did her dirty. Like she had a whole that line in the Superman Wonder Woman book about why she doesn't have a big rogues gallery.
Yeah.
Yeah, she kills them all. Yeah.
She's like, because when it gets done, and Superman just being cool with that is also really weird.
Yeah, I was expecting like the
Superman's not
Daredevil
himself in the
Punisher dynamic, and it was not that. He was like, "All right, I guess she murders people. Whatever. She looks good. Let's do it."
Yeah. And it's like they wrote it to the best of their ability. Like the people in the series outside of Wonder Woman handled it the best they could, but you're handling a vicious killing Wonder Woman dating Superman.
Yeah. Well, Superman-ish. I'll say that.
Yeah, he's like, I can accept him as an alternate version. He doesn't work as the main version, but if like New 52 stuff was Elseworld, I would like it more. Wonder Woman, I just wouldn't like.
It reminds me a little of like Injustice Superman, but like without the dictatorship.
Yeah, like I think that works well enough because it's supposed to be like, no, this shouldn't be what Superman is.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the point of Injustice.
All right, Tom. What about you?
Me. I just finished the first arc of Brian Michael Bendis' Daredevil, and it's really good.
Oh,
Hell yeah!
It's really, really good.
Brian Michael
And this-
Bendis, you really never know what you're gonna get.
That's classic Bendis,
yeah.
though. That's Bendis in his prime.
No, no.
He was
I
pretty
didn't
good.
know he
in
wrote.
But the first arc was pretty good. It was like it wasn't centered around Daredevil. It was centered around like Leapfrog's kid, and it was great. It almost made me cry. Like it was phenomenal.
What
It's
is
like-
it with writers taking like C-list characters and giving them super like the tragic Kite Man comic about how
Yo, kill
the
him off.
Joker poisoned. Yeah, how the Joker killed his son.
Yeah.
And the reason he's Kite Man is because like to honor his son. It's like what the heck? I had no idea Bendis
Yeah, man.
wrote Daredevil.
Yeah, I was saying before to some people over on Twitter that Daredevil is the most like consistent comic character in all of it, like comic history. I can't think of a single bad running set.
Yeah. I haven't heard of anyone complaining about a run of his too much, and for like a comic character, that's insane. Like, yeah. TS, what have you been reading?
Before I go to that, can I extend this just for 2 seconds? I have 2 things I want to get on a soapbox about.
Yeah,
Number one, yeah, I totally agree. Daredevil never sleeps. I've never read a Daredevil book I didn't like. I fucking love it. Even when he's like, "Oh, I'm not Daredevil. Look at my t-shirt." I swear. Always great. But I can actually speak a little bit to the making the C-list villains like awesome, like that whole thing. Partly because that's a big plan. I talked to a lot of up and coming comic book writers, and we all have similar ideas for like a C-list villain that we want to make awesome. And the reason that is because it is really hard to put your stamp on an already known character like Batman, right? Even if you have the best Batman run, it's up there with a bunch of other best Batman runs. How many fucking awesome Kite Man runs are there? So like if you
run,
exactly my point. So you can really put your finger there and go, this is my Kite Man, I'm gonna make him awesome, and everyone's gonna fucking remember that I made Kite Man awesome. So it's kind of like an easy win for you. But the second thing is when you get a chance to write a lot of characters when you're first like getting in, and not that Tom King's been doing it for a while, but when you first get a chance to work on something, they don't give you run of the mill here. You can have anybody you want. They pick and choose very carefully who they let you play with. And so for a young writer trying to break in, if you go, okay, they're not going to let me do Joker, so can I have Kite Man? They're going to go, yeah, who gives a shit about Kite Man? And then you make people give a shit about Kite Man, and that's how you get to write Batman forever.
I mean, yeah, that's the next point. When I think about my favorite like Spider-Man moments, I have a lot to think about. But when I think about the villain, the Gibbon, I kind of only think of one thing. Like when Nick Spencer made me cry over a dude who looks like a monkey.
I have the same feelings for a lot of Slot's run. Like a lot of people don't like that run, but I loved it because he made so many villains that no one gave a shit about, and like new villains, and just actually put his stamp on it in a way that everybody else was like, oh, I'm going to do Green Goblin again. You know, and he's like, he made people care about who this new Hobgoblin was. He kind of jumped around and made new villains and kind of played with the part of the world that no one really gave a shit about unless you were reading The Flash. And then you want to know every single side rogue character because they're always interesting. And he did that for Spider-Man in a way that hadn't really been done since the 60s. So like, it's really fun to play with those little characters that no one really gives a shit about, because then DC proper and Marvel proper isn't going to go, we have a movie planned with Zack Snyder. You can't play with them.
Yeah, I mean, Slott definitely has a lot of problems as a writer, but I think because of the negatives of him as a like writer, people often overlook the good he can do. Because like when he's not writing Spider-Man to be a whiny teenager, he writes a really deep person. Like he does excellent at the supporting cast. I think if you've ever read Spider-Verse, he does great at that.
Hell yeah!
Because there's a lot of writers on Spider-Verse, but Slott was managing the whole event, and he does a great job at giving everyone the proper attention. And yeah.
But yeah, sorry to derail that.
It's fine. Hey, we're just here to talk comics,
What
man.
we're all about, man.
That's what happens when you bring a writer on. Is like, oh, hey, I get to do this quickly. Normally, I have to send it to an editor, and it takes 6 months, but I can just go.
Yeah, I mean, like, dude, we yap so much. This is not our first episode for recording.
Yeah. That's one of the disaster.
Yeah,
we have a last episode somewhere.
Yeah, it just exists. Like, I think it's just on Ethan's computer somewhere.
I'm going to be honest, man. I didn't even bother saving it.
I podcasted for 10 years before I jumped into comics, and I had so many lost episodes. I had so many interviews with like people that I would never get a chance to interview again, like bigger names in lots of different like industries, and they were just like horrible because I was either bad at it or the technology was bad or they kind of sucked. And after you do 200 episodes of one show, you're like, fuck it, all right, we lost that one, let's go again. Everybody back to one. We'll just be up till 2 o'clock in the morning and record this again.
200, jeez.
That's real.
But yeah. Anyway, T.S, your recent comics you like?
Okay, well, I'm gonna break all the rules and do 2 because you can't fire me. I don't work here. First up is Remender and Araujo's Righteous Thirst for Vengeance. I don't know if any like everyone's talking about superhero comics, but I'm old, so I read a lot of independent stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a lot more into indie, so I'll add this one to my list.
Oh, definitely, it's awesome. I will warn you, like it's very graphic, it's very violent. It's not for the faint of heart. Like tons of triggers when it comes to actual violence. Like there's dead bodies, murder, violence everywhere. So it's not for everybody.
Side note, whenever someone says faint of heart, I can't help but think of the Spider-Man 2002 opening. When he's like, "You want to hear my story? Are you sure?"
Worst
It's not for
opening.
the and they, in the most unironic way, say it's not for the faint of heart.
And Tobey Maguire just like phoning it in completely. Like, do you really want to know?
Look, I love him, man, but his voice work sucks.
Are you sure?
You know he
I'll
was
tell
gonna
you.
be Peter B. Parker. Peter B. Parker was gonna be his Spider-Man
Man, that
originally
like
in Spider-Man.
would have been so boring. I'm so glad they went with Nick Miller. I can't think of his actual name.
Oh my, yeah, complete. And it's like,
Yeah, the
yo,
guy
oh
from
my
Hugo.
god,
Jake Johnson. Jake Johnson. That's his name.
Yeah, Jake Johnson.
love him, love
Fucking
him.
love that guy. But yeah, the faint, not for the faint of heart. I highly recommend it if you're okay with like the violent aspects. I don't want to give too much away because it's super duper twisty. I'm a sucker for anything Remender. I'll pick up almost anything he picks up. The artwork is amazing, and what I can say is, if you dig John Wick, Nobody, those types of stories where it's like someone's out for
Absolutely.
revenge and it's an action-packed like ride. That's what it's all about, and it deals a lot with the dark web and the hitmen and serial killers that kind of use that as their playground.
Oh yeah, I love John
Really,
Wick. That's
actually.
like one of my favorite series.
Well,
Yeah,
go
no,
check
we
out
need John
Righteous
Wick
Thirst for
comic.
Vengeance.
John Wick
Awesome.
comic book series that would go so hard, like a prequel
I think
series.
it was one.
Was there? I think there was like a mini series, man. I don't know. One
Yeah, I
shot.
think
or
that-
I
something.
did not know that. I'll have to check that
I
out.
want like an ongoing though.
And listen, I mean,
done.
Keanu loves comic books, and he recently like jumped into obviously with Berserker. I wouldn't be surprised if, because a lot of the spinoffs aren't doing very well, both behind the scenes and in front of the camera, that we might see a lot of those projects move to comic books.
Right.
Just because like there's a lot of money involved. They want to make more money off John Wick, and he's kind of getting old and a little bit done with doing the movies. So we might see some of
Please
those end
don't.
up in the books.
Please don't do John Wick 5. I know it's planned. I know the director and Keanu said only if they have a good idea. But like, let him stay dead. That was such a good ending.
That's not how Hollywood works, buddy. That's
I know,
not...
but like, now they do need Kiana on, and Kiana like would need a very good reason. That's my one like thing.
I think
Also,
I
can
think
we
a
get
good way to
shooter?
do like a John Wick comic series would be to do like the prequel stuff before he retired.
1000%. I would love to see that so much.
Yeah, have Kiana
Him in his
right.
prime.
And then I'm trying to think of who would be a good artist.
Dan Mora, because Dan Mora should draw everything.
I agree, but I'm also thinking someone who normally does darker. Oh, Greg Capullo. Greg Capullo.
Oh, Greg Capullo. I also think Greg
He
Capullo should
would
draw
draw-
everything.
Yeah. Just make it Greg
think
Capullo, Ryan Otley, and Dan Mora.
I think the artist on Ultimate Spider-Man right now would be a good one.
Oh, on
that's not-
Hickman's.
I like
Spider-Man?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
He did,
Yes, didn't you have a second series you've been reading?
I did. I'm sorry. Again, if you take me down any corner, I'm just going to keep talking. So, yes, Strange Academy from Scotty Young, Umberto Ramos. I also love those two. Umberto Ramos was one of my first comic book loves. I got into comic books like really, really hard during Civil War, the first one, and I loved the Wolverine run that he drew. So that was like an immediate thing. And Scotty Young is one of my favorite writers of all time.
Yeah.
I love everything he puts out, and also everything he draws too, but everything he writes. And Strange Academy is basically Harry Potter without all of the problematic shit, because J.K. Rowling's a piece of crap. And I love the Marvel world, and I hadn't been able to jump into as many superhero comics recently. So when I saw that he did Strange Academy, I bought the big giant trade year one, and I love it. It's perfect. It's everything I wanted. It's Harry Potter, but in Marvel world, so characters I actually understand instead of terrible fan fiction. And I'm loving it so much. So yeah, Strange Academy from Scotty Young and Umberto Ramos. Go read it.
You know, that's what I like about your page. You talk about a wide variety of things on your page that you can find in the comments of the YouTube video. So you can go follow TS.
Yeah, I won't let us pin it apparently because YouTube sucks, but it'll be there.
But go follow TS for sure. But you talk about a lot of indies, a lot of stuff I frankly have never heard of. Like, you don't talk about even the bigger indie stuff. You just talk about indie that you enjoy. It's
For
great.
sure, man. Like, I mean, I read anything and everything. I don't talk about stuff I don't like, partly because I want to work in this industry. So it's like I don't want to shit on somebody that might be my boss someday or hire me. So it's like completely,
Right.
cards on the table there. You won't hear me shit on many books. But also just because I can always find something I like about a book, especially working in the industry and wanting to create comic books myself. I can learn tons even from a bad comic book, right? There's always maybe the lettering's dope, maybe the artwork on this panel is amazing. Even a bad story had people that loved and cared about it working on it and putting a lot into it. So I love talking about that stuff. And the thing is I could talk about the Massive Verse all day. I could talk about Invincible. I could talk about Hellboy, but you fucking already heard of all of those stories. You know all those creators. As much as I love Kyle Higgins, you know that already, right? I could talk about Power Rangers, but people are already reading that. I want to talk about the stuff that maybe they haven't heard about because maybe I'll have a take that they'll want to check out the page for. And also, I have ADHD, so I'm going to talk about lots of random shit because you can't keep me on one topic for very long. So I love talking about lots of indie stuff just because maybe you haven't heard somebody else talk about them, but also because I do read a ton of stuff. I don't just read superhero stuff. I don't just read image stuff. I like everything. And my wife is really cool because my wife loves comic books, but she's not tapped into it in the same way. She doesn't follow tons of creators. She loves James Tynion, and that's probably the one name that she'll grab anything that he writes. But anything else, she just goes to the comic book store and picks stuff up off the shelf. She's like, okay, we're reading this week. And because I'm so tapped in, I don't do that. It is really cool. And I get to read tons of shit that normally I wouldn't. If it doesn't have that buzz, if I don't see one of you guys talking about it or somebody from the Hall of Nerds or something, maybe I don't know about it when it comes to superheroes, but she does not give a shit about buzz. She doesn't give a shit about the awesome Batman run Zdarsky did. She doesn't care about any of that stuff. It's oh, this book looked neat. She liked the pitch. She brings it home and I read it. So it definitely helps that I have, a really cool partner to do that. So and some of the eclectic mix I can credit to her.
That's
that's an awesome mindset.
That's a great mindset.
Yeah.
A lot of people hate on that kind of thinking of just reading what looks cool, but ultimately that's how you get into comics without being confused. Just look at what looks good.
Right.
That I figured out pretty early on. Hey, I like Spider-Man. Hey, Ryan Otley's art looks cool. I'm starting there.
That was a dream project for me because Invincible is one of my favorite comics of all time. And when he made the jump to Spider-Man, it was full circle because when I was reading Invincible, that was when Robert Kirkman was doing Spider-Man stuff. And it finally went full circle there for my journey with Invincible. It was really cool.
Yeah.
But
I really want Ryan and Nick back on a book sometime, maybe a Spectacular Spider-Man or something.
Yeah, it's kind of curious that they haven't done another collab like that. I don't know what's going on there.
You gotta remember, Marvel definitely doesn't want Nick back for a Spider-Man book because that run was received horribly when it first came out. It's gotten a lot of love recently, but it was not received well. And then the Zeb Wells run started.
Reviewed well and sell well, though. I mean, I feel like when you have creators that do well together, sometimes that'll eventually trump sales. When you look at Sean Phillips, Ed Brubaker, not all of their runs sold amazingly well before they went fully independent creator stuff.
Ed Brubaker, yeah.
I think because their only duo so far was on such a big property. Ryan is safe because of the success of Invincible and how he still works on the show's art direction. But Nick really, he's been he wrote Devil's Reign for one. So Marvel definitely wants to keep him around, but I don't know if they want to put him on a Spider-Man book again, which does upset me because he's probably the funniest Spider-Man writer I've ever read.
Right. And honestly, a lot of those you'll see, they're reviewing terribly, and then you'll see them get lots of work in because a lot of those big companies don't really give a shit about the reviews. Even sales are tertiary. Can they deliver the product? Are people still buying the product? Then that's all they care about. So you'll see them kind of quietly move that creator, and then they'll get more stuff until something sticks. Because once you're in, as long as you're not an asshole, you kind of stay in. It's kind of hard to get kicked out. So when you see somebody get kicked out, they did something something rough.
Even
So like I
though,
won't be surprised
even
to see
then,
him again.
you need to be way more than a butthole. Like, there are some really bad people who get consistent, like Greg Land gets consistent work still
I
from
don't
Marvel.
know who that is.
Yeah, me
Greg
neither.
Land is a guy who he does trace art, which isn't bad in itself, but thing
Oh
is
yeah,
he
the
steals
trace.
a lot of art. He
Oh,
traces
okay.
pornography over
I have
into
heard
Oh
I
my
have
images
heard
god,
of
that
that.
too.
Yes.
That's the thing. It's not just for grown women. That's why I hate Greg Land. But
I
Marvel
got
doesn't. Like,
right.
he did the Gwynverse event. He did like most of that for the covers. Yeah,
But you're right though. Like I think that's a perfect example, right? Like you have to really upset people, and not just like
Oh.
people in general, like people up top, to be kicked out of comics, and that's so like I think that's partly why I'm surprised that they haven't at least come back together for some sort of project. But also, sadly, the way that Marvel works a lot of times is you don't get to really know your co-creator, especially in the land of email, unless you really try and want to cultivate a relationship. You don't have to a lot of times.
yeah.
I
That's
think
one
it's
thing DC
probably very
does
beneficial
better.
to do that though.
Yeah. DC though really does put you see Mark Waid and Dan Moore becoming a duo right now.
Mm-hmm.
They did World's Finest. Now they're doing Shazam. They're still doing World's Finest. And even the Teen Titans Run spinoff of World's Finest is the art isn't Dan Moore, but it is inspired by Dan Moore in a noticeable way.
Yeah, I mean, I
and
think that
sometimes
duo
it's
is
just
perfect.
sometimes it's just like how it goes between the creators. Like you just vibe. Like there are some artists that I work with on multiple projects, right? Like we'll finish one pitch and we'll immediately start making 3 or 4 more because we had so much fun working together and we like each other's vibes. And there are some people that I purely pay to do art. We say hello, goodbye, thank you, and that is the most that I've communicated with them. I still have great working relationships with them, but we're not doing anything pro bono. We're not meeting up at the at the grill to have a good summer day together. That's not happening. So it really depends on them too. And also, some offices are more of a club. Like you look at the X-Men wing over at editorial over at Marvel. Most of those people end up working together in some way outside of that because they have to work so closely together. Like that's the way that they've made the X-Men room.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's fair. I mean, different people need different kinds of relationships in the workplace, so that makes total sense.
Yeah,
I've
I think that Mark
definitely-
Waid and Dan Mora duo is so good because Mark Waid can write really fast and Dan Mora can draw really fast.
So
It's
fast.
without hurting the quality too.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the difference between Dan Moore and John Romita Jr., who I think gets a lot of flack as an artist. I don't think it's a bad artist, but he gets hired to do art quickly, is the thing. So his art is very rushed.
Yeah, well, you learn and you'll see a lot of professionals, both writing and drawing. They'll talk about what really sells is consistency, and if you can do that on time, it doesn't matter if you're the best. If you're on time, you're already better than a lot of the other people.
Why do you think Rob Liefeld has a career?
A big career, yeah, bigger than most, and still working. That's the thing is people like to write Rob off for a lot of reasons, but he's still going, and that's not born out of nowhere. And being expedient and proficient, even if it's not the best work, if it's on time, you're going to get the work. And it's going to keep going like that. And Dan Mora has the gift, and a gift is I don't like saying gift or talent because it's skill. That's something that they practiced at. But Dan Mora can do both, and I've never seen a page of his that isn't amazing. Whether he spent 5 minutes on it or 3 days, and I've seen both, and they're both magnificent.
I mean, my profile picture in the Discord right now is a Dan Moore Superman drawing.
World's finest, man. So sick.
Oh, little side note, not necessarily trying to hate, but did you
dare
see what Rob Liefeld said about John Romita Sr.?
No.
In his opinion, John Romita Sr. is the worst, but he said that's just Sr. is his least favorite Spider-Man artist, which is insane considering how much John Romita Sr. made iconic in Spider-Man art.
Mhm.
I just think that's like a funny thing.
Fine, it just doesn't really make much sense for another creator to bash another one.
Right, like I
Yeah,
said
like,
on
why
here, like
go
I
out
wouldn't do
your way?
that. But
He had to like reply. He made a comment about artists defending himself in a kind of like arrogant way, honestly,
Mhm.
by trying to. But that's neither here nor there. Then someone said something about John Romita Sr. and he's like, and my least favorite Spider-Man was like, you didn't have to reply to this random Twitter account. Like, but also you need to recognize Senior, like, he's the reason a lot of Spider-Man stuff looks the way it does.
Right, but like it's still an opinion, it's still subjective, right? And also, did he say like, oh, it's terrible? He said it's his least favorite, which is fair, right? Like, I show my kids a lot of comic books from the 60s, and sometimes they'll be like, oh, I think the new ones look cooler. And it's like, oh, yeah, sure. Like, when it comes to sensibilities, that doesn't mean that we didn't grow and don't owe, like, to pay homage to, like, the classics and speak about them with a little bit of reverence. But it's okay if that's not, like, your favorite art. I understand when my kids don't want to watch an old black and white movie with me.
Yes, just let me be negative. Gosh.
That's not my vibe, man. Like, I love comic books, and also, like, you're allowed to be negative, but I don't have to join you. I don't got to get on that train. My train runs on happy faces.
It's gonna be typed in a 8-tweet at TS right now. I'm kidding. I have Twitter. It's a help.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck finding me on Twitter. I'm not very active on there. What you gotta do is you gotta stitch me on TikTok, and then you can talk some shit.
I'd have to make a Twitter for one.
No, you'd have to make an X.
Oh, shut up. Okay, we're moving on now. News. We're going to news. I'll start us off here. You
Can't
know,
wait to make an
first off,
X after this tweet. Wait,
I hate you
what do
so
they call
much.
it?
Anyway,
Xing?
so we're going to be talking about a bit older news than we normally do. Normally, it's like a week or two old. Here it's a bit more just because we skipped a week on our episode schedule.
Yeah.
But so Superman
Yes,
Legacy production is going swimmingly, as James Gunn puts it. We know like the sets are being built. Have been mostly built. Over 90% of the cast is locked in. A lot of great stuff. And while we don't know if she will be in Legacy, there's a small chance. We don't know. I'd prefer not to be, but Supergirl. We know for a fact that the search for a Supergirl has begun, and they are looking at a few people. Which a lot of people are mad that they're not rehiring the actress from The Flash. Me personally, she did a great job, but I want a new actress. But they're looking at Millie Alcock, Amelia Jones, and Meg Donnelly for the role.
Yeah, Meg
they
Donnelly
look
voices her in the Tomorrowverse. I mean,
right.
she looks like
She
Supergirl.
does a
Come
good
on.
job. She does a good job. And then Anya Charlotte. I'm horrible at this. I'm just gonna spell it out. Challotra. That's her last name.
From The Witcher.
Yeah. I didn't watch The Witcher, but yeah.
Cersei.
She's being casted as Cersei in Creature Commandos. Interesting that a Wonder Woman movie is showing up.
I was making a
Creature
joke.
Commandos.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh shit!
That's awesome.
That was like a fan cast a couple of years ago. We were like, "Oh, that would be dope."
Yeah, she's gonna play Cersei in Creature Commandos. Interesting
so
that
rad.
a Cersei has been cast
I didn't
before
know that.
Wonder
That's
Woman.
awesome.
I don't know what she's gonna
I
do
think
in
we're
Creature
holding off on the
Commandos.
big three for now.
Yeah, I think that's an easier cast to do, right? Like Cersei, as much as like Cersei's a big character and clearly a good fit, I think Wonder Woman you got to get perfectly right.
I guess I
you know?
just more
Your
find
big
it interesting
you
that
really gotta look with them.
a Wonder Woman villain has an important role before Wonder Woman. That's what I find. Because if you don't remember, Creature Commandos is coming at the end of this year. Like it's going to be our first DCU canon project. Yeah, but Ethan, you got a lot of Daredevil news for us, don't you?
Yeah, I got some Daredevil news. If you're excited about Daredevil Born Again, the revitalization, I suppose.
Is he like a big deal? Is he like?
Yeah, he's pretty big. I would say he's
Okay.
Probably my favorite Marvel character. But
bigger or smaller
than
Kite Man, right? Kite Man's
I'd say he's
more of a
probably a little bit
Stiltman
below,
guy.
personally.
All right.
Kite Man's probably
I'm in
in a bigger league than Daredevil. But nonetheless, so Marvel confirmed that the Daredevil show and Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, all the other shows are all like canon to the MCU. Like officially, they added it to the timeline on Disney Plus.
Sacred timeline.
Um,
Yeah.
If you needed more proof, there it is. They've confirmed it. Which
Woo!
is
Yeah. Oh,
Right.
and the showrunner, like the dude for Echo said Daredevil's a part of it. So there's just double confirmation.
I mean, I don't think anybody really doubted that, considering that he showed up in the exact same suit, same actor. But whatever. And then finally, this is really good news to anybody who loved the Daredevil show. We've got Foggy and Karen are returning in Daredevil Born Again with the original actor.
So
Yes.
excited about that.
Because
Awesome
in
news,
the
because-
original Born Again episodes, they were killed off screen.
Yeah, they
They
died
were-
during
they
the
were
blip.
cut out.
Like they came back from the blip and they like got hit by a car or some shit. Like what? I can't believe. How could you do
That's
this?
how they were gonna die? Are you serious?
Yes, to Senior Foggy, they were gonna do him like that. Like
That
you don't
is
do that
so-
to an avocado.
Oh my
in
That's
law.
God.
disgusting.
So disrespectful of some of the best supporting characters we've seen in a comic show. Like
Seriously, they were one of the few, like whenever you're watching a comic book show, and honestly any show, but like you love the main characters, you want to see them do more, and then they cut to a side character. If they don't nail that, you hate those side characters. And there were
Oh
so
my
many
God.
parts where they kind of did Daredevil just a little bit strange, like we didn't get a ton of Law stuff from him in those shows, but I was still into it because Foggy fucking killed it. Karen was fascinating. Karen had one of the best storylines in that whole show. Like I was so broken up when they said that they were going to do Born Again as mostly a courtroom drama, because I was excited about that. I love courtroom dramas, but then without Foggy, I'm like, well, what's the fucking point?
yeah, he was only gonna put the Daredevil suit on in episode 4, apparently.
Yeah, what is that?
Like
You know
but
what's
the
bad
first
when like the
Kingpin
current like
wasn't
what
gonna be
were you saying?
Kingpin was gonna be reformed too. Like he wasn't gonna be a criminal in the show.
Yeah, well,
least
I
not
mean,
at
you
the
know it's
start.
bad when like the current like producers of Disney Plus say it's bad.
Right.
Yeah, when Kevin Feige looks at the show and decides you need to scrap more than half of it and completely fire everyone.
Yeah, he did that
That's
with Blade as well a while back.
Oh yeah, because Mashar Ali hated it because they were gonna get a new lady in that was gonna take up the mantle of Blade, and Blade himself was gonna be like a side character with like very little screen time.
In the movie Blade, awesome.
Yeah, and they now we know it's being changed. It's gonna be like a Blade movie now.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. Now back
Yeah.
to Daredevil news. We've got Muse is reported to be the villain of Born Again.
Do you guys know anything about Muse? Because
I haven't
I just
read
know
that far back in Daredevil yet. But he looks cool. He's covered in blood on this picture, so
Which one is Muse? Oh yeah, that's a little bit
Creepy
a
looking
little
dude.
bit ways back.
apparently he's terrifying. From what
Yeah,
I've heard.
100%. I remember that, but it's not that long ago. 2016, 20. Well, I guess I'm old, but that's not that long for me
run
when
is
it comes to.
I was
run was
thinking,
here.
was Muse in the 90s or something? I'm pretty sure he's a
No, then
more
I would
recent-
definitely know. Then I'd be able to be like, yeah, Muse. That's when I was reading tons of comics.
His run was
Yeah,
amazing.
I mean, I'm excited they're taking a more mature villain, even if the show itself isn't going to be as mature as the Daredevil show. Because I only watched season 1 of the Daredevil show, but I loved it.
You only watched
I think
season
we're still
1?
going with
Oh
it.
man,
Okay,
season
so
2 and 3
my
are so
Disney
good.
Plus account got. I don't have a Disney Plus account anymore, so yeah, I can't watch it.
Oh, you're gonna have to when it comes out. You have to-
I mean, I'll find a way, but all my special sites change the format on the screen so it doesn't fill the full screen on my phone anymore.
You gotta
And I'm
make
not
some
watching.
friends with some old dudes who we have daytime jobs and can afford Disney Plus. That's find some friends with kids.
Yeah.
Because
Chris, what
you
happens
have
to
to
all
have
your
Disney
money
Plus.
from your job, bro?
Well, actually,
Where's it go?
there's a dude. I have to pay rent. I got things to do. I got other things to spend money. But my sister actually is gonna get it once she gets married, and we're gonna share all the different accounts just to
Congrats.
make
You're just gonna leave them.
everyone in my family put. Yeah,
Mazel
so I'm
tov.
gonna watch Daredevil in April.
Yeah. And wait, it's coming out early. And also, the showrunner of the Netflix Punisher show is set as the showrunner for Born Again. So
That's so cool.
that's good news.
Such
So
good
They're
good
definitely
news.
seemingly changing the tone around. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited because the original tone they said that was just going to be kind of like jokey. Maybe they were going to do R16, but now it's looking like, if Echo was R16,
It looked
we're
like
going
they
to
were
get R16.
And Punisher
Yeah,
went
it looked
hard
like they were
too.
Oh,
it
Punisher's
looked
great.
like they were gonna adapt the
Especially that first season.
Raid one.
That has some serious moments too, but I definitely get where like the courtroom drama vibe comes in, which is still cool. Like I would love more of that in the show, but if you're going to tone down all of the super heroics, like it still is a little disappointing. I'm okay with half and
Like
half. I mean, but
like that one scene where he in the courtroom with She-Hulk, I want just like more scenes like that. That was such a
that
cool
scene
scene.
was awesome. I love She-Hulk. People
Because-
bash on that show so hard, but that was one of the most comic accurate shows I've ever seen.
Watching Matt be a lawyer from someone else's perspective is always so fun because it's like
very entertaining.
he's a great lawyer, but you're so confused the entire time. When you're
You
not
didn't see a lot of
from
it
his
either.
perspective, you don't have the benefit you normally do as an audience member.
And like
With
they
knowing what's
didn't let
going
him
on
be a lawyer very much in the Netflix show. Like that was a big conflict of the show was he couldn't make it, so then Foggy had to go step up and become a better lawyer. And that like while that was awesome for Foggy, I missed out on so many of my favorite moments from the comics of Matt Murdock being an awesome lawyer.
Yeah, because like after the first few episodes, he really wasn't lawyer much. Because I remember watching it thinking, all right, let me get to the Daredevil stuff already, and then they did that. And I was like, all right, where's the lawyer stuff?
I think his peak lawyer stuff probably came in season 2 with the whole Frank Castle stuff.
Yeah, great Trial of Frank Castle. Season 2 is one of my favorite like comic book adaptation things ever. I love that season so much.
People hate on season 2 a lot.
Yeah, people suck. I don't know what to tell you, man. Like people be dumb. That's how they do it sometimes. It's just like the people who don't like She-Hulk. Like some people have bad takes. I don't know what to tell you.
I think She-Hulk is like a decent enough show.
Don't make me fight you, man. Like you invite me on your show, I don't want to fight you, but
I understand not liking it. I did enjoy. It wasn't my personal comedy either. Like my sense of humor.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't like the comics, you probably wouldn't like the show.
I haven't read the comics. I don't read comics.
It's pretty comic book accurate. Like her vibes of the comic, it's breaking the fourth wall, very jokey, and with the courtroom, like not courtroom comedy, basically. Like especially like if you go look at like Slot's run, like very classic She-Hulk, and like it being almost exactly that for the show. So I dug it. I understand why people don't, and then I don't understand the other half of it who are just misogynistic, and they're like, oh, girls twerking, that can't be Marvel.
The first 2 episodes having the internet sections, and then the I immediately pull up my phone and see the exact same reaction.
Exactly.
I love that. How it knew exactly how fanboys would react. Like
it's okay not liking it. I think when some people have a bad take and they create this thing because they haven't actually read the comics, they're like, oh, if you read comic books, you would know it doesn't do that. I'm like, well, you clearly have never read a She-Hulk comic. You're lying to people.
That reminds me of a guy I saw a comment on TikTok, and he was like, Miles is great. If you read the comics, he's killed Captain America. And it's like, oh my gosh. He has not killed No. The fact that you're trying to act like you read comics when you clearly don't. Like, you Googled something one time and saw a cool panel. Like...
The only panel you need to see, if you're going to pull one out of context for the Ultimate Universe, is the A on my forehead doesn't stand for France.
That's what makes him the best Captain America.
I agree.
Oh my gosh. We have more Daredevil news, right?
I'm so sorry.
You're fine. Do we? Did I give... I don't remember what I sent you.
No.
Who, me?
Was that logo that they revealed? I didn't finish Echo, so I don't know if they did that at the end.
I haven't seen it yet.
All right.
Uh,
Tom, go on to your news then.
Yes,
It's your
sir.
time to shine.
good time to
Let
shine.
me pull it up.
I kind of forgot you were here, to
But
be
I think
honest.
you're off the pod.
Yeah. So, Kingpin is supposed to be like the level Thanos in MCU, and he's supposed to
Yeah.
be in like many stuff.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. It's they like doing a
Well,
Devil's
Kingpin
Reign
can't see this
storyline.
guy.
I think I saw at the end of Echo. I haven't seen it, but I saw he runs for mayor. He said, and I think they're really pushing this whole Devil's Reign thing.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Audience members, if you don't know, that's when he outlaws vigilantes in New York.
Mhm.
Yeah. Now I wonder if they're going to take what Nick Spencer had in his run, where Kingpin is like he became mayor, so he made it like him and Spider-Man are buddy. And this cuts off Spider-Man from a lot of heroes, for one, but two, does make some conflict. 'Cause it makes some funny moments too. Because whenever Kingpin shows up to help the villain, Spider-Man's like, "Hey, you're here to help me, right?" He has to maintain public image.
My thought on it would be I hope they pull a little bit of what they didn't use in the Civil War books, where because Spider-Man becomes like kind of like this face and he's got no one to support him, he has to be buddy with Fisk a little bit at first. Think like Mysterio in No Way Home. Or Far From Home, I mean, and then the second half you have Daredevil, who's amassed this underground army, and that's where we get a lot of the Netflix Defenders, and they have to kind of team up to go take down Kingpin, and that becomes
Right.
the bring them all together moment from all these series. I would really love to see that. We'll never get that because that sounds too cool, but that's what I would love to see.
Yeah. That'd be
Yeah,
cool.
big
Personally,
companies are allergic to cool stuff.
I don't love that for Spider-Man's first like street level movies in a while that he's getting put in with a bunch of other heroes. I wanted a very solo movie.
I agree.
But
I
this is still
definitely
gonna
want
be
that for
cool.
Spider-Man.
Like I am still excited to see him interact with Daredevil.
I was
Honestly,
really
I said
disappointed that he
first-
didn't show up in Hawkeye. Like when
Yeah.
they did the big scene with the Rockefeller Plaza, like Spider-Man swinging by would have been so perfect, and it breaks my heart that it didn't happen.
It's like on the one hand, I get it, but also like I say, first street level movie in a while. I wouldn't really consider TASM 2 street level because, well, a little bit. The TASM movies are the closest we got, but the first one has a citywide takeover plot, and the second one kind of also has a citywide takeover plot. So
Yeah,
like,
not really street. I guess you can
I
call it street
consider
level.
them street just because of in the MCU,
Yeah.
Tom Holland's like
Most-
basically
He's in
Iron Man.
space. Yeah, right. He's an Avenger.
most of the
That's fair.
movies-
That's very fair.
Most of the TASM movies stick to street, but it's just at the end they do very not street level villain plots.
He
And then
fought
Toby-
a mech on the street. Does that count?
No. Tom,
Great
continue.
gesture.
Okay. Steven Yan dropped out of the Thunderbolts as Sentry, apparently. So, what are your thoughts?
Scheduling conflicts. That really sucked. That makes me
yeah.
sad.
I
I
mean,
think
like,
Ryan Gosling's probably got to be Sentry.
Oh shit.
There's-
That's interesting.
Yeah.
that's
Never
possible
cooked.
because they have been talking to Ryan apparently. But
Yeah.
the thing is, like, the articles say it was scheduling conflicts, but there's not much to suggest that. We don't.
Do you think
really
it was
know.
Kirkman like dropping his spot and like giving it away the whole Century thing? Do you think they're still mad about that?
Here's the thing. I don't think he was the best choice for Sentry. I think he would have done good, but I think there's much better choices in the Marvel universe for him to play. So I'm not too.
Yes, I think there's a
upset
better
about
choice. Yeah, for Steven Yeun. I don't think that Sentry is the perfect role for him. I think he could be someone
I
so
was
much
a little
cooler.
confused. Yeah, like I don't know, like it would have been funny his only superhero roles being yellow and blue superheroes. And then you have Glenn from The Walking Dead, his free comic book. I mean, there have been rumors about a Walking Dead remake show, but like following the comics and animated. So it's possible that he's reprising his role there. I don't
Oh,
know.
that's interesting. I hadn't heard those, but that'd be kind of
Uh,
cool.
I actually think Thunderbolts is going to be a big movie. A good movie. I just don't think Thunderbolts was the ideal title, really,
Yeah.
because it's not Thunderbolts. It's a bunch of super soldiers dealing with their trauma. Like,
It kind of looks a bit like they've just picked characters and just thrown them onto a team.
There's
what
a lot
kind
of
of how the
super
Legends
soldiers.
of like how the Legends of Tomorrow show operated. Like, okay, what characters do we not have a plan? Who's not doing anything right now?
The
Put 'em
thing
in
is,
there.
they just don't have a Suicide Squad team that they could throw them onto. Similar, like there's so many teams like that in DC where they have a team for everything. Marvel does have lots of teams, but not a team for everything. So it's like Thunderbolts was the closest approximation that they could get to for a
Yeah,
team. It's like they're
all
not going to be
their
the
teams.
champions.
Yeah, all their teams have like at least one iteration that is nothing like what the team is supposed to be, and
Yeah,
then
like
Marvel just forgets
Defenders,
about
like.
it. Yeah, or like there was what was the thing I was thinking of? I don't know. I forgot what team I was
But
thinking of.
you're not wrong. Like I think of Defenders like that. Like I love what they did, and I love what the Defenders have become. But the Defenders in the comic books for so long was like that was Doctor Strange's team. That was the Justice League Dark. Those were the people. It's like got Doctor Strange and then Hulk. You know,
Right.
it's like we're gonna go fight something supernatural, and then then you had the Midnight Suns if you wanted to go further into the
Yeah.
supernatural.
Midnight Suns is the emergency button of, hey, we need someone fighting something magic, whoever can come. That's the whole
Right.
point of the team. Scarlet Spider was on it at one point.
That's right.
I think that's funny. That Ben Riley.
I love Ben Riley. Ben Riley is my favorite Spider-Man, just to break lots of people's hearts and make them never want to let me write Spider-Man. My son's name is Ben Riley, named after that Ben Riley. So
That's awesome.
That's wow.
Yeah.
My favorite is, I go pretty classic. It's Peter.
Because you're a coward, and we've said it several times in this show, and you're just cementing it. You don't like She-Hulk, and you don't like Ben Riley.
I like Ben. It's not my fault half his stories suck.
Justice to Ben Riley.
Thank you. Thank you. And
Hey,
when we say
my
justice,
second
we don't
thing-
mean we don't need him to be a serial killer. Let's skip that. Let's not make him a sociopath. That was scary for a moment.
Chasm?
He's too Chasm. He's
still
just
Chasm,
chilling
yeah.
as Chasm, yeah.
Him and Kane are just don't worry about it. They're still here somewhere. When we have more time and Spider-Man's bigger, like when the movie's going to come out, they're going to do that.
What is Kane doing right now? Anyway?
Kane is doing Kane. Kane's out there in Texas somewhere, probably. Don't worry, he's not
He's
dead.
in Texas? What?
He was in Texas.
Oh my gosh, that's just so.
He was the Spider-Man of Texas for a long time.
I feel so bad for those two because like Miles is getting like a lot of attention right now, as he deserves. Miles is great. Miles is getting a lot of boost. Peter doesn't even have to be written good to be the best-selling comic. Because Amazing Spider-Man is always the best-selling series. Never forget that.
That's right.
Yeah. Tom, continue with the news. I think there was more. I don't remember.
Alrighty. Pedro Pascal is basically locked in as Reed Richards because he had to drop out of this horror film, I think, just to fit in for Fantastic Four.
It's not like confirmed. That's why, but there's a decent chance. Like he had to pick between the two, or maybe like there was something else that came up. I don't know.
It's at least heavily
Is this
rumored.
Fantastic Four movie even happening?
It's pretty much like
Yeah, it's locked. He's locked. As far as I can see, he's Reed Richards now, and it's like I think it's like rumored that the rest of the cast is being locked in. They have a filming date too.
Woo.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna hit that. We'll see.
Yeah. It's like I remember they announced the new filming date before the casting announcement about Pedro, and it's like, do you have a cat? Can we get a cast, please?
Is that still being directed by the director from all those It's Always Sunny episodes?
I don't know. I don't know
who's directing it.
It was John Watts. That fell apart. Early last year.
Probably for the best.
But this film, it needs to be good. Like, I don't know if
Yeah,
Marvel
when it comes
realizes
out in
how good.
2035.
Yeah,
I think they
So
do
which one-
know. I think they do realize, and that's why they keep pushing it. Right? Is like they're not half-assing it because it's kind of the future of Marvel. Because young people don't give a shit about Fantastic Four, and not in the same way that no one gave a shit about Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Like no one gave a shit about Guardians of the Galaxy. Period. I was a giant comic book nerd, and even I hadn't read a ton of Guardians books when that was coming out.
no one knew anything about Guardians.
Exactly.
They couldn't pick a direction for Guardians.
Whereas people have heard of Fantastic Four, but they're old, right? And it hurts me to say that because I love Fantastic Four stories and I've been reading them my whole life, but they are old. And if you're going to make, like my son, for instance, my son loves Marvel Comics and he's only recently really getting into them. He doesn't give a shit about the Fantastic Four. And so you really got to make them awesome on a whole other level to kind of reboot this in a little bit of the lull that it's in. And they can't really risk it, you know?
Marvel
Yeah.
really mismanaged Fantastic Four for a lot of years. You probably remember when they were devaluing the X-Men and Fantastic Four brand. Thing
You
is,
can't say it like
they
it's so
devalue-
old. It's only a few years
X-Men
ago.
bounces back. X-Men bounces back. You know, I just say it like that because not everyone remembers that. You know, general audience wasn't really aware, of course.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
but
a Secret Wars.
X-Men bounces back. That's X-Men. They're always going to be fine. Fantastic Four had already been mismanaged for a while there. You know, so yeah, this really needs to bring them back.
I think Fan Four Stick was what really put it down the toilet.
That hurt
Oh my God.
watching.
Public perception wise, for sure, yeah. Like, oh my gosh, why? It's not even the only movie I've seen replace an A with a 4. Like, it doesn't work. It's like how 7 replaces a V with a 7, and I'm like, 7 in what?
Oh, that's fantastic. Say that again.
Uh,
That is awesome writing.
okay, well, but yeah.
What
Oh
are
my
we,
gosh,
some kind of Suicide Squad?
what are we? Some kind of 4 people that for a group of 4 that are fantastic ish.
That's beautiful. That's
Oh,
beautiful. You should
God,
write it.
Yeah, I mean,
Keep
I
pushing the
actually,
writers' room.
Marvel has been telling me to keep quiet, but I actually am set to write the Fantastic Four movie.
Ooh, I will not be getting tickets.
Can I send you some? I have some scripts that are due this week. Can I send you just for some touch ups? Can you just like bump them up a little bit?
I'm
No,
pretty sure he's in desperate
I
need
don't
of
want to read
touch-ups.
trash. Sorry,
Oh,
I only read. I'm a
Chris
very
off
busy
the
man.
podcast,
I'm
man.
writing. I'm also writing the new Batman movies, all of them.
all of them.
Okay.
Both universes. Okay.
I'm directing too. Matt Reeves just saw the vision.
As long as that means he goes back to Planet of the Apes, I'm in.
I'm actually taking over that too.
You can't. Don't ruin my
Okay.
Planet of the Apes. I'll fight you.
This planet, it is of the apes. I've
Gonna
never
ruin
watched
anything,
the
including
Planet
this
of the Apes
podcast.
movie.
I took a chance. I was like, well, they've only done a few episodes, but they were entertaining. You had Josh on here. I like Josh, so maybe I'll join and listen. This is well,
You're gonna
it's a
ask to
show.
have your voice distorted the entire time. Have your name bleeped out.
We'll just edit Chris out of the podcast episode. No one will know he was here.
So it's just like TS reacting to a bunch of blanks? What?
Other people
I'll
said
respeak
things.
your lines.
Yeah,
that's
but we
perfect,
also
yeah.
had like a minute-long spiral about ADHD spirals, so
We is a strong
I'll
word.
just respeak your lines.
You were equally a part of that as me. Come on.
See, this is the writer's spin. Here's the thing: I'm never accountable for this. Somebody else did it. That came
Exactly.
down from editorial.
This is why you were
What do we
wrong
got
to
next
go
up,
on strike.
Chris?
Tom has the thing. It's Tom still.
I'm done.
Tom's here?
Oh, you're done? Okay. Yeah, all right, so yeah, all right. So I don't know why I thought we were still going on the news. This podcast is in shambles. Discussion
Just your
time.
audio track. That's it.
Core discussion of the episode. Tom, what do we got?
I have nothing, to be honest with you.
Goodness.
Oh, that
I
is
really
awesome.
don't.
I'm taking this
we're in
podcast solo.
shambles.
You guys are both out.
Goodness. Okay.
I got nothing. I'm sorry.
What was it? I think actually, last time I believe, well, on the Lost episode 4,
The
I'm
last
pretty sure
episode,
Ethan
yeah.
said this. Yeah. What's like a writer that has
Oh,
a
yeah,
rogue
yeah.
character that you would pair with
Yeah,
that
that
character?
one.
Like,
I
yeah.
guess I'll start off. I guess.
Go ahead.
Tom King writing Animal Man. I think
Ooh.
it just needs to happen. So
I
yeah.
love that.
That would definitely fit his style, I feel.
Yeah, definitely.
Sure.
After
We
reading
haven't had
Mr.
a run
Perfect
of
and
his.
Woman of
What?
Yeah, he had a Grant Morrison run and a New 52 run, and that's it, right?
Yeah, and that's it. That dude, his daughter has had more panels, I guess, than him. He had this
What's
one
his
panel.
daughter? Who's his daughter?
I don't know. His daughter hangs out with Wally's daughter. That's all we know. And he had one panel in Beast World, I think it was. That's it.
Wow, that's insane, honestly. But I mean, like, yeah, I would like. I want Nick Spencer back on Spider. He's already done Spider-Man, so if I so I can't say that. But I don't know.
Yeah,
All
otherwise
my
I'd say
favorites
Mark
have done.
Waid for the Flash.
You want okay?
Otherwise,
I guess we
yeah.
can do returning people. It's fine. I want Nick Spencer back on a Spider-Man run for sure. I think he would do great with Deadpool too. Nick Spencer on Deadpool, you know.
Sure.
Tom, like Nick could also punch up John Kent a bit. I think because John Kent has had some kind of mixed stories. Like some are good, some are meh. I think Nick Spencer could do a really good Superman run. And might as well give him John Kent. You know.
I think so.
T.S, you got anyone?
I have so many, and I'm trying to pick one that a lot of mine have already happened because I love so many of like the independent creators now, and they all got started on Marvel and DC. But Jason Aaron coming to Superman soon is interesting. I would say Superman or Batman. That would be like a dream for me, and probably Scotty Young on Spider-Man, but it would have to be a young Spider-Man, like doing some sort of young years type story, just because I love his coming of age stuff. And like comedic values. I feel like so many people they get the wisecracking right for Spider-Man, but it's still not funny or distracting enough. I think a lot of people forget how funny Spider-Man can be unless he's being written for Deadpool, and then it's a good time. So I would love to see some of that comedy come back.
Also, you mentioned the distracting people forget there's a strategic reason for his jokes. Like
100%.
They one make him look like less of a threat, and two, like if a guy swings in, punches you in the face, and tells you a corny joke, what are you gonna do?
For a long time, one of the things I wanted was like Hickman on X-Men, and then I got that, so I'm like, oh, that was my dream for so long. I mean, I don't know, all these things already happened. Just give me more Spider-Man from people I already like, because I'm gonna read anything Scotty Young does. So if he's writing Spider-Man, I can make sure I don't miss Spider-Man again. Shit like that happens. But not to slow down the pitches. If you got more,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we're gonna move into an interview segment though now.
Oh no, that's my thing.
So,
Oh shit.
Yeah.
I gotta stop phoning it in. Okay, let me put my serious hat on.
Ethan, you started off.
Me? What you said?
Yeah.
You cut out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's go into my questions and pull them up. All right. What is your big inspiration for Tokyo Firebin?
Oh,
Wait, did I send you the wrong one? Hold on.
Should I not answer this question then?
No, yeah.
Okay,
Go for it.
no.
Go ahead,
You're not looking at the right one. Go to the first thing I sent you. It starts with like the favorites.
Oh, Chris is getting all the good questions apparently.
No.
All right, so
Definitely.
gatekeeper, man. Get him up in here. All right, so this one's pretty industry standard. Who is your favorite hero?
Oh, my favorite hero, like superhero comics.
Yeah. I mean,
Probably.
protagonist too could work if there's an indie you love.
I mean, yeah, that's a hard one. It's probably a combo 4-way tie: Spider-Man, Batman, Invincible, and
Awesome.
Superman. Those are the
Awesome.
four.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are all equal. Those were some of my
Nice.
first comics in their respective fields. Like Spider-Man was one of the first comics I had ever seen, like superhero anything, with a lot of like the 90s
Yeah.
cartoon stuff. The first comic book I ever owned was The Death of Superman, because my parents wanted to tragically torment me. They're like, oh, hey, we liked comics growing up in the 60s. What if we gave them to our son? How do we get him into it? I don't know. How about when they murder one for the first time?
Yeah.
I think it was some sort of lesson on
Okay.
Jesus, because I got it for Easter, and like he also gets resurrected in there. I don't know if it was some weird church thing, but I got that. But
That is
then I
a
fell in love
really
with it.
wild comparison.
I listened. I only recently
It
became
honestly,
aware of
yeah.
that. Yeah, I don't know if
That
that
is
was their goal, but
insane. And then Jesus went into a coma, went in his alien space pod, and fought 4 other Jesuses in his mech suit.
exactly. Like, listen, what I thought Superman was black suit, mullet, big gun, fighting Doomsday. That's Superman. Everybody knows Superman.
Yeah.
So there was that.
That's like Zack Snyder's wet dream.
I know, right? I'm still so surprised we didn't get a gun out of the Snyder cut. Like, he did not have a giant gun, which of all the things I wanted from the Snyder cut, that was the one thing. I'm like, well, at least he'll have a giant gun and a mullet. Couldn't even give me that, Snyder. But yeah, so those 4 probably equal a tie. Invincible, because that was one of the first big independent comic books I had ever read. I had watched a lot of the Spawn show, but I hadn't read a lot of the Spawn comics. And when Invincible came out around like 2001, 2002, I got into it. And because I'm super old, and that was one of the first times I read something that wasn't from Marvel, DC, or Archie. So I loved Archie comics as a kid, because I grew up in the middle of nowhere, so I could get Archie comics, and I couldn't get Spider-Man because they sold double digest at like the grocery store. So not a superhero.
I read a couple as a kid as well.
Right? It's like they're just around, so it's like hard not to love it.
Yeah.
And then Batman, because he's Batman, and Batman the Animated
Of course.
Series will forever be one of my favorites.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Me too.
Oh yeah, Ethan, don't you think the new Batman Adventures is better than Batman the Animated Series?
No,
Haven't you said that a couple times?
just in art style.
That's not what you told me.
Man, look, new animated adventures. That's when Bruce Timm started pushing the whole Batman and Barbara thing. Like, nah.
Yeah, that part is strange. I did love
Oh my
getting
God.
Robin back, and you got Nightwing, and Nightwing's probably up there. The only reason I put Batman above Nightwing is because nowadays I can relate more to an adult, But as a kid, Nightwing was probably my favorite, and especially like as a young adult, I have lots of paintings for my wife. She's also an artist. And I have the cover of Nightwing. I can't remember which issue, where it's just the blue sky and he's jumping off the building. It's one of my favorite comic book covers of all times. I love it. Such a classic. But then as I get a little bit older, and I'm like, well, I can't relate to the teenage stuff as much. So then it shifted from Nightwing to Batman.
That's very fair.
I mean, that's great. But next question.
Basically, opposite version of that question. Who's your favorite villain in comics?
That's a bigger question, because there's so many good ones and for so many different reasons. I don't know if I can pick just one. Oh, that hurts my brain a little bit.
I can tell you the best one in comics.
Let me hear what you think the best one is.
Quentin Beck. Mysterio.
I love Mysterio for many reasons. Best is so
fun
strong.
Fact. He's a legacy character.
That's true.
He's a legacy mantle. Multiple people have taken up the mantle in main universe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Green Goblin was my favorite for a long time, not because he's the best villain. I loved what they did with him. They changed that character over so many times. Whatever they needed an antagonist to be for Spider-Man for so long, they made the Green Goblin that. Like, was the first death of a character caused. Like, if you really want to hurt these superheroes where you know their secret identity, why aren't they just going to their home and blowing them up? Green Goblin fucking did that, you know? Green Goblin dropped Gwen Stacy off. So menacing and scary, I go with Green Goblin. When it comes to like how big they are and like their I guess input on my writing style would be Kingpin. Kingpin to me is such a scary villain because he's part of the system, right? He's got tendrils and everything. He is big and like he'll fight you one-on-one and still probably beat you, but also he can take your bank account, right? He owns the police. He does whatever he wants because the system is broken and he's just played into it. And that part, especially as an adult who's poor as shit, like that's so terrifying to me. And I love that about him. And then if we're going redemptive superhero, Mr. Freeze in his most like newest creation. Like, you know, when I was a kid, Mr. Freeze wasn't shit. And then after the animated series, they really turned him into such an understandable villain, like that like empathize with him. So there's 14 answers for you.
With Houdini at the helm.
Right, right.
I love what you say about like being poor. That like that was funny, but also like that is kind of true because you get a kid like, hey, what you more scared of, money or this big scary green dude? They're gonna say the green dude, but the older you get,
right,
real life problems. You know, Kingpin does that very well. I am one of the people.
I was scary, you know.
So
I do
on edge watching season 3.
Right, exactly.
I do get a little annoyed by how powerful he is sometimes. Like he should not be able to throw hands with Spider-Man as well as he can.
I mean, like he's clearly like some incarnations he's a mutant, right? Some incarnations he's been souped up with like Captain America syndrome, you know, type deal. And sometimes he's just like, I just fucking ripped, man. What are you gonna do about it? The first time it happened, I'm like, that is such a cool twist. The second time, I'm like, I have questions and I need answers, please.
Yeah, like in the Spider-Man PS4 game, the opening boss fight was cool, but also he is throwing Spider-Man through well-fortified walls.
I mean, he falls down like multiple stories and just barely unscathed.
Like you're supposed to only be able to survive a 5-story fall max. That's the normal human average, and this is comic books. So let's go ahead and double that, right? That was more than a 10-story fall. But that's the game, not the comic. Yeah. I do love his look in that game. Like, I love the black suit with the purple tie.
So good.
Yeah.
I always go
Next
for the
question.
White one. Do the blood on the sleeves?
Yeah, I'm partial to the white suits, partly because of like the Spider-Man, you know, cartoon, but also just iconic when it comes to the comic books with like the, you know, the floral shirt underneath.
I just like the color black. You take a normal superhero suit, make it black, I'll probably like it. Yeah. But next question.
Right,
Ethan,
next
that's
question. You. Yeah, I know. Would you ever want to work for like a bigger company, like Marvel, DC, or Image? And what would you like as a character would be interested in writing if you could just pick?
Oh man, would I like to work for somebody who could afford to pay me and I get to play with some of the coolest toys in the world? I don't know. That's
Exactly.
Man, that's a lot. Of course I would. That's the dream, honestly. So I actually get into a lot of arguments with a lot of other indie guys because they're a little disenfranchised with how much it takes to break in and how much of a pay-to-play system it is. Like, you have to create a lot of books and you got to have a lot of luck and a lot of privilege to break in a lot of times, or a lot of one to cancel out one of the other ones, right? And because of that, a lot of them are like, you know what? I don't want to. I only want to tell my own stories. And I completely understand that, and I empathize with that, and I like more power to them. I want to do both. I want to tell my stories. I'd love to have my stories over at Image or Boom or Dark Horse, right? But I also I got into writing comics because I also I love those toys, man. My dream is to work for Marvel and DC and Boom and Dark Horse and IDW. So like, I would love to be over there. I have a couple of dream graphic novels I'd love to write. One of them is for Spider-Man. It's been written for years and it changes every few as I become a better writer. But I would love to write a Spider-Man story. That's like the Hall of Fame. That's my big dream. If you said like, hey, you could write anything tomorrow, it would be Spider-Man. And then I have a Batman story that I'd love to tell, but not Batman, Bruce Wayne, Batman, Dick Grayson.
Oh yeah, cover that.
The Spider-Man story, is that like for Ben Reilly, the one you have?
No, it is Peter Parker. I love Ben Reilly. He's one of my favorites. That's partly nostalgia, right? I was born in 1993, so it's like Ben Reilly was Spider-Man. So there's a little bit of that, like when it comes to it, and like the costume was really cool. As a kid, it's like that was enough. Like forget like the Clone Saga is terrible, right? Like oh, there's so much stuff going on, and they're dropping all these threads. I didn't care. I was a little boy. It's like that costume was dope. Spider-Man's in a hoodie.
I've heard a lot of people growing a lot of love for the Clone Saga. I've never read it in full. I've read bits and pieces, what I can find on the internet.
There's so many cool threads in there that are all dropped because there
There's
was so much change in editorial.
Was that when they made the clone of Gwen Stacy?
Yeah.
Marvel was
running around, right?
Yes.
Marvel was recovering from a bankruptcy.
Oh yeah, but they were still spiraling into one at that point. That wasn't until Ultimate the line where they actually able to kind of dig their way out of there for a few more years. That was close to like 2000, 2001.
Say what you will about Ultimate. It helped save Marvel.
And it's funny, like Bendis gets some hate sometimes. And I'm like, you forget some of those dudes were like saved Marvel.
Now,
period.
I will say most of the hate is fairly justified. I think there's still too much, but he wrote some weird stuff.
I'm not arguing against any of that. I just think sometimes when they're like, oh, like when someone writes something bad now, people try to retroactively go back in time and say, oh, they've always been bad, or I've never liked their writing, which is sometimes a little dangerous and obviously disingenuous. And because that makes it sound like bad people can't write good things and good people can't write bad things, and that's dangerous when it comes to public sentiment. So I just try to I try to be a little bit more, I wouldn't say objective, but a little bit more open. And I'm not neutral.
Yeah.
People write shitty things; they should be called out for it. But we can't pretend like we've never liked anything that they've written.
I mean, I certainly hate what Bendis did to John, but people say he's a terrible writer and then go back to praising Ultimate Spider-Man. So,
Right. Exactly. It's a little bit dangerous when you do those sentiments, but to bring it back, sorry to get up on my soapbox. Spider-Man would be the dream, not Ben Reilly Spider-Man. This would just be Peter Parker. But I loved older Peter Parker, similar to what Hickman's doing. I would love to tell a story about an adult Peter Parker. I don't want to pitch it because that's a thing that I hope I get to pitch for real someday. But Peter Parker with Mary Jane and possibly kids being an adult, because I grew up with Spider-Man literally, by the time that I was reading Spider-Man, he was an adult and he was doing adult things, and they tend to age him down so they can reach a wider audience. And I understand that from a corporate synergy aspect. But what people are seeing with the Hickman run is there's a big audience for people wanting Spider-Man to be somewhat regular, somewhat okay, not always struggling in every single aspect of his life. It's okay if he maybe has a healthy home life, like that's all right if they let him settle down.
Keep him
people are
low.
Also really excited to see him finally in a happy relationship with Mary Jane again.
Exactly. And I don't mean regular as in like, oh, you regular, you got to settle down and have kids. Not like that, but like, it's okay to not have turmoil in every single aspect of your life. And as much as I love struggling Spider-Man, it's okay to let him go home and have dinner with his partner. Like, that's okay. He can get blown up at work.
We're not asking for him to be a billionaire again or anything. It's just like, it reminds me of when what was it? The Spider-Man story where like he is married and has a kid and it's alternate universe,
Renew your vows.
Yeah, renew your vows. People were so excited when that became a thing.
But even Renew Your Vows was like, we need another hat on a hat, which I love Renew Your Vows. Like, don't get me wrong. But they were like, oh, we can't just let that be the story. Also, you need it to be a mutant apocalypse and no one's allowed to have superpowers and Nimrod's going to hunt you down. You know, like you got to always tack that other thing on when, again, as a family man, like it's enough at home. Okay. Like you don't need to add another thing on top of it. It's already a lot. It's already stressful. I promise
Bring
people will find it
Mayday
interesting.
Bring her back.
Mayday is one of my favorite characters of all time. I talk a lot about the Clone Saga and Ben Reilly, but I also grew up with Spider-Girl and the grown-up Peter Parker who was no longer Spider-Man with his goatee and his cane. That was a big part of my childhood. So as much as like I relate to the 90s animated series, I also think of Peter Parker working for the Bugle with his goatee and kind of looking rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Ethan, you got one more question for him, I believe, and then I'll take it.
Yeah. What's your favorite comic book of all time?
Jesus Christ. That's a tough one.
On you breathe.
Oh man, I've been reading comic books for 25 years, like nonstop.
Yeah.
So if I have to pick just one, I'll probably cry. But if we're going like modern comic book, Middle West is one of my top comics in recent years.
Oh, yeah.
It's super wonderful, heartfelt, basically Wizard of Oz type story. Little boy crossing the world after some abuse at home, but his dad isn't just abusive; he's also a literal living storm. And it's kind of this fantastical Midwest world. And I love that and relate to it on so many different levels. Scotty Young's writing, Jorge Corona's art. It's a masterpiece. And I recommend everybody go check out Middle West. If we're going old school, which it hurts to say old school because it came out when I was like 10, but Invincible. Classic superhero stuff, best comic book in the universe for many different reasons. And there's so much to read. You got 144 issues of the main series, and there's other tie-ins and other things you can jump to. But if you want just an amazing story that will give you everything, you'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll be at the edge of your seat, and you get lots of really awesome superhero tropes. You can't do better than Invincible.
I mean, I don't know if I would call Invincible old school. It's definitely not modern anymore. And yeah, maybe it started before I existed, but I don't. It's post 2000. I wouldn't.
Barely post 2000.
Yeah, I start calling stuff old school in the 90s era.
Right. Like if we can go back to 90s, I'm like, I grew up with Archie, right? Like Archie's one of my favorites. I don't bring it up a lot, but like that like I read Archie comics, not just like Archie, but like Sonic the Hedgehog's Archie run, which is like a weird thing that I say to people and they're like, none of those words match up, but that was a thing for a really long time.
Pendus. Anyway, next question. Is there any like comic book ideas that you've entirely scrapped or had to like heavily rework into something else?
Into like another comic book. I don't write a lot of other mediums. I used to dabble in a couple other places. Like I've written a few novels. You'll never find them. It was under a different name. But yes, 100%. Yeah, they're lost, and if you ever find them, no, you didn't. But yeah, for sure, it happens almost once a week for me. It's either a story that didn't work, a story that I have a better idea for, or what happens more often than not, especially in the indie scene, is a team that fell through, right? Somebody's got to like back out of a project for something else. A lot of times it's like, hey, I have this really big opportunity with a bigger creator. And they come to me and they're like, hey, I love working with you, but this person can pay a lot more. Or this company can pay a lot more. And like, you want to see your friend succeed. So you go do that. And then I don't leave my scripts as is. I'll change it for a different artist.
Yeah. Right. That I honestly didn't expect that to happen a lot, but that makes sense. Like,
it depends on the level of creator that you work with. I work with so many really talented artists that a lot of them are on the cusp of like you knowing their names without me telling you about them. My co-creator on Tokyo Fire, for example, Sky Hawkins, she's so talented, one of the best artists I've ever seen, and is such a unique style, like this weird combination of East and Western influences. And because she's so unique, it's not even just that she's the best and she's great. It's so unique that so many companies are already trying to snatch her up and get her working on books on so many different places that there was a time where Tokyo Fire was going to be drawn by somebody else because she had so many other opportunities. Now, luckily for me, a lot of them cleared out of the way and moved schedules around. And she was such a trooper and was like, well, I have this book with this guy named T.S. Can I work on that first? So soon she'll be a household name, and luckily she worked on my book first.
That's really cool. Because if she gets big enough, people are gonna like eventually, people start talking like, "Oh, hey, if you like this person, this was one of their first books."
I would love to be a footnote in her journey. That's going to be my claim to fame, and I'll definitely appreciate it because she's so good, and she's also a super talented writer. She has her own series. You should go check out all of Sky Hawkins' stuff. But like Exhaust is one of the books that she works on. Yeah, definitely go check it out. But she helps me so much because we can't afford an editor on Tokyo Fire. I have editors on other books, but she basically plays editor for me. And she's had so many awesome ideas. And because she comes from the artist background, she thinks of a lot of things that I didn't pay a lot of mind to. The hovercrafts, for instance, in the book, she broke down all of the engines and like, how do they work? Why is this energy source doing this? Is it propelled from the back? Is it propelled from the bottom, like Back to the Future? She put so much thought into that because she's also a writer and had all these ideas in her head. So when these people leave the project, it has to fundamentally change if you still want it to be the best book it can be. So I have to scrap them completely and start from scratch. Even if the idea is still good, it still becomes a completely different book.
Right. And this one I understand if there's no, but do you have like a favorite thing that you've written?
I mean, yes, of course I do, but you'll have no reference for it because you haven't seen it yet. I'm working with a number of wonderful artists, so it's kind of weird, right? Because I'm new to everybody here because Tokyo Fire is one of the first things you've seen, or maybe you've checked out growing up. But I'm still pretty new, but I haven't not been writing all this time. I came out with Growing Up a few years ago, and it was like my first try at writing comics, and I loved it so much that I was like, well, I want to work in comics. How do you do that? You pitch all these other publishers. So I immediately hired like 25 artists, and I wrote all these pitch packets. So it's like, 5, 6, 7 pages and a cover, and then like an in-depth script and an arc and a synopsis and like a pitch for it. And then you send it to publishers, right? Well, they don't give a shit if you've never written anything before. They're not going to read any of these pitch packets. So all of them said no. Some of them really mean. Some of them didn't reply at all. And so I had all of these pitches just sitting there. And when I kind of got on TikTok and learned about kickstarting comic books and crowdfunding them, I started writing even more and finishing them. So now there's full scripts for all of these books and several issues and arcs. So I have some favorite projects, but if I told you what it was, you wouldn't give a shit. So I'll tell you the name and you'll go, what the hell is that? I'm working on a book right now with a really talented artist named Brandon. You can follow him on TikTok. I'll drop his @ to you. You can put him on here. We're working on a book called Hollowed Hills, and it's a murder mystery that I wrote about 4 years ago. And it's really cool. Very, if I can toot my own horn and compare, stand on the shoulders of giants, it's very Brubaker-esque, Sean Phillips-esque, in that kind of vein. So if you like murder mysteries or True Detective, you'll dig that, and we'll be doing that sometime, probably in 2025. The book's already done and being drawn right now, but we're going to try to take it to publishers, so we'll see.
And then if you like, when you're done writing a book, like, and you have to keep writing, if you were to credit one thing is the most motivating thing to keep you writing, what would you credit?
They're two sides of the same coin, and that's reading other people's stuff. If it's amazing, it makes me want to write so bad because I want to be part of that club. I want to write with these people. I see these amazing works like Middle West, for instance, or Invincible, and it makes me go, well, I want to tell my stories too. Those are so good, and they've given me so many ideas. I want to tell stories too. And then the other half of it is reading bad stories I don't like, stories that I don't dig at all. And those people are working. Those people are getting paid. Those people have my dream job. And if I think I can do better than that, why aren't I? So those are the two
Yeah.
things that keep me writing every single day. That's why you see 3 TikToks a day, except for today, because when I be recording TikToks, I'm podcasting with you guys, and it's been awesome. So
Yeah.
that's why I do the thing day in and day out. That's why I have so many pitch projects ready to go, and why I'm in a couple of Discord groups with other indie writers. And whenever somebody posts, work in progress, I also post one, and I always have a new project to show them, because I'm always inspired either by stuff that sucks or stuff that's awesome.
That makes sense. And
It's fair.
kind of in a similar vein, do you get writer's block? And like, well, of course you probably have. But like, how do you deal with writer's block? I
How
guess.
dare you? Do I get writer's block, man? Like, I
Everyone
knew
gets.
this hack. They let anybody have a podcast these days. Of
Yeah.
course I get
Yeah.
writer's block, man. Like, everybody gets
I
writer's
mean-
block.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
I think mine's a little bit different than other people's. Partly I credit, the neuro spiciness of my brain. The ADHD helps a lot, because when one idea is gone, another idea pops in. A lot of times when I get
Right.
writer's block is when somebody else has asked me to write something. That's the one where, like, if I'm not tied to the genesis of an idea, sometimes I have a harder time writing it. I'll give you an instance. I don't know if anyone on here follows Agony Prime on TikTok.
No, not personally.
Amazing artist, love that dude. He came up with this idea called surrogate space moms. He drew this lady in a spacesuit who was pregnant, and it's like, she's a space surrogate, and she was like, "Hey, TS," I had never met him before, or even talked to him. We were mutuals, but we hadn't spoken. He was like, "Hey, I really want T.S. Luther to write this story," and I'm like, "I don't even know who you are, dude. Like, I'll take a crack at it." And I wrote the script, and it was good. It wasn't great though. And when I tried to go back to the script to make it great, it took me about 6 times as long. I normally can write a 22-page script at least in a week. It took me a month and a half to crack the code on it. And because it wasn't my idea, I think was the big thing. I usually don't have any trouble with writer's block, because I always have the next idea I want to do. My brain, because of the ADHD and a lot of other things, it doesn't rest. So a lot of times someone will prompt me with something random, and bam, that's a story. And it's more, I have a hard time trying to focus on one thing and get it done and go, okay, I'm going to finish this project and move on, or I need to not write. I need to go play with my kids. I need to go play a video game, hang out with my wife. The writing thing never stops in my brain. So, not to toot my own horn, it's kind of a problem, but I don't have as much of an issue with it as other people. And it's like, that's my secret, Cap. I'm always writing.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you are a
I
writer.
relate to that.
You are a writer, right? Just to make sure that I haven't been confusing that this whole time.
You asked me.
Yeah.
Because next question is, like, you're a writer. If you were to venture into, like, have you wanted to venture
Chris,
into
what do you
other parts of
mean?
the comic process? Like, has he wanted to do some art, some, I don't know, editorial work? I don't know. Like,
Well,
what do you mean? What do I mean?
Yeah.
So, go ahead, man.
I'm going solo after this.
A fair question, I guess. Yeah, I've always wanted to draw. I think, like a lot of people who end up writing, I thought that you had to be really, you only had to be talented at drawing, and if you weren't, you couldn't draw. I completely missed and misunderstood, because of lack of people in my life who did that skill set. That you could learn how to draw, really, and that was okay, and a completely valid journey, and that it was a journey that was possible. So I always wanted to draw, and I couldn't out of natural talent, and I never learned how to do it as a youngster. Now in my 30s, I've learned to draw quite a bit, and I love it, and I actually am illustrating a couple of different projects for myself. I call it Scotty. We have Scotty Young at home. It's such a knockoff style of his, but I love drawing. I'm not nearly as good. That's part of the problem, is because I get to work with so many talented artists. If I'm going to illustrate the book, it's just going to be worse, right? So I prefer to hire somebody or partner with somebody that's going to make it so much better. So I save some scripts that I'm like, I can draw this good enough. So I would love to be able to dabble into more artistry and draw more of my own books. If I could do anything, I've done editorial, I've done editing. I'm not a fan, mostly because I want to be in that driver's seat. I want to be the one writing. It's not just a control thing. It's just that's where my brain works. It's that idea. I would love to help you make your idea better, but how I do that is by writing, and that's not always fair to the people's project who have hired me to edit. There's been several people who ask me what my page rate is. They find out and they can't afford it, so they go, "Oh, will you edit it for me instead?" And that's like their backdoor way of like asking me to help them write it, and I'm just not a fan. So yeah, if I could dabble, it would definitely be more into the artist. I'm doing a couple of covers. I always do one cover for each of my books, and I'm doing a cover for Colonel Jefferson #2. If you follow Irrepressible Comics, that nerdy Papa Bear, his comic book, I'm doing a cover for him sometime next month.
I have to check that out.
All right. Yeah, that's been great.
Awesome
So now,
the covers.
what was that?
What's that?
I was saying it's awesome about doing the cover. Get your own like stamp on your own like writing.
Yeah, a lot of it was like practice. I couldn't afford a lot of variant covers for Tokyo Fire #1. We obviously have the main cover from Sky Hawkins, and then I got a cover from my buddy Mar Art. You should go check out her work. She has some amazing work. She's doing a book with me about magical girls coming out soon. I loved working with her, and I was like, "Hey, will you do an alternate cover?" And that was like the one cover I could afford, but I figured I needed 3, so I did the alternate art cover for Tokyo Fire #1. It's the red cover. I tried to do it in kind of a Sean Phillips-esque style, or if you also read anything by Sean Murphy, so The Wake or Curse of the White Knight, I studied a lot of Sean Murphy stuff to do my cover.
That's awesome. I love Sean Murphy.
Yeah.
No, me too.
So we're gonna move into some things about Tokyo Fire now. Tom, I believe you have some questions for him on Tokyo Fire.
I do. So, just to start off, what's your inspiration for Tokyo Fire?
I mean, a lot of inspirations. There's like the mainstays, right? Akira, The Matrix, Cyberpunk, the classic RPG. I'm a big TTRPG dude, so Cyberpunk Stories Coming from the Tabletop was a big one. And then seeing like the kind of resurgence recently with like Cyberpunk 2077 and a lot of stuff from Studio Trigger, like Promare was a big inspiration for this book and a big way of how I pitched it to people. Like there's some similarities other than it's like a cyberpunk aesthetic, but like that's how I got Sky Hawkins on the project. Was she really loved Studio Trigger and loved Promare the movie, and I knew that because I had been following her artwork for a really long time. So when I had a project for her and I was like, I need to get this right, I just slid in Studio Trigger's name and Promare and Akira. Like put enough keywords in this. Will you please respond to my email? And that worked. So we kind of leaned into those inspirations. And then X-Men, which it doesn't seem like it on its face, but there's a lot of superpowers in it. And I love what X-Men did, especially in the 90s. And I love Hickman's run and stuff. So I seeing the idea of superpowers and how they can affect ground level people, so like people on the bottom of the food chain, and how as much as it might even out the playing field, if it's come to fighting isn't always the answer, and the government's not going to make it easy for you, even if you had something like a leg up, like you have superpowers, as we've seen in X-Men comics, right? Like we're going to create the Sentinels to combat it, and we're going to outlaw people with the mutant gene, and that idea really spoke to me, and so putting that into a cyberpunk aesthetic seemed like really fitting.
Yeah, sounds awesome, man.
Yeah,
I mean that. Yeah, wow, it's really cool. I mean, I have a friend who doesn't read comics, but like one of the first comics I'm gonna get him on is Tokyo Fire because I think he's really gonna like it.
Hell yeah. You know what I think he'd really like? If you bought him like 16, 17 copies of it. You really want a few of each cover. So thank you for putting that in writing and saying that out loud on your podcast. I really appreciate that. Don't worry, I'll bill you later.
Sure
Don't worry about it. But thank you so much. That really does mean a lot. And I hope he digs it. Does he like anime? Does she like anime? What do they like?
He is... I don't know if he watches a lot of anime, but he does really like Japanese media.
Oh,
he watches
okay.
anime. He does.
We have a
He's
lot of
getting into
language consultants in there. So
Yeah, he's getting into manga.
Ah.
I know the art style he's really gonna like because like it kind of reminds me of like Jet Set Radio, if that makes sense.
Yes, yeah,
His
100%
favorite
Jet
game,
Set
but-
Radio. Skyhawken's art is very Jet Set Radio. I always compare it to like a lot of the artwork for the early Gorillaz music videos. I know I'm old, but please tell me you know who the Gorillaz are.
Yeah.
Okay, it's that like that almost anime style, like a little bit of that Western bleed into it, but going more towards the 90s aesthetic versus like Scott Pilgrim's chibi side from like the 2000s. So we went a little bit more 90s
Scott
with it.
Pilgrim
But
is like his favorite franchise ever.
yeah,
Oh my
he's
gosh.
going to. I compare this. I'm like Studio Trigger Pro Mare meets Scott Pilgrim is a lot of the pitch to publishers, which they didn't like. So maybe it's a terrible pitch, but that is how I did it for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, we got a few more about Tokyo Fire.
So was there an inspiration for Tib and Ren?
Yeah, a lot of that came out of, so when I was 16, a lot of like, long story short, I lived by myself with a bunch of my buddies. We didn't live with our parents, and we lived in this rundown house. And sometimes we were unhoused. I was living in my van sometimes, and it was really just me and my buddies kind of living off whatever we could. And it was a lot of found family stuff. And one of who I consider my brother is my best friend, and we were just kind of living on our own, and we got involved with a lot of shady people. Sometimes you did what you had to do, and we knew a lot of people who were even worse off, who it's like, yeah, no, it was like sometimes we boost stuff. And so a lot of inspiration from stories like that, and then also a lot of like classic fairy tales. You think of like Aladdin, or any of the Dickensian orphan stuff, Tale of Two Cities, some like classic media that way. But the orphan and the found family thing has always been really relatable. If you like Arcane, a lot of the same inspirations that came from that.
I need to watch
I love
Arcane.
Arcane.
People keep telling me to watch
I
Arcane.
highly recommend Arcane.
so
Very,
good.
very good story.
It's based
Yeah,
on League of
that's-
Legends,
yeah.
though, right?
Yeah, but it more like it creates the
Clearly.
lore for League of Legends. You can't hold it against it for being based off there. Like it's so
No,
good.
I
And honestly,
don't.
it's so much better than it has any right to be because of the League of Legends connection. I
It's
played
just
League
like-
of Legends for a long time, and I was so surprised. I was like, "There's no way
Yeah.
this is going to be good," and it's one of the best things I think I've ever seen.
It's just
I
like
agree.
League fans or something else.
Oh yeah, they are, man. Like the amount of times I'm like, I have to stop playing. They're like, oh, why? Like you got to go, and I'm like, no, these people hurt my feelings. Like they said so many
I
mean
do-
things that I can't keep up with this.
I do not play games with public mics on.
No, not
Never.
League of Legends really did me in that, and like I was forged in the fires of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and the amount of slurs I've heard dropped on one Xbox
Oh,
Live,
yeah.
like that's just crazy.
Xbox Live, man.
The amount of I've never heard a slur. Like I've never been called a slur in a video game. You know what I have been called a slur
We'll
for
jump on Fortnite
repeatedly?
tonight and we'll change it.
Okay, moving on. Never mind. Next question.
That's yeah. So what do you hope for with Tokyo Fire?
I hope people resonate with it. I hope people like it enough to where if I kickstart or do a crowdfunding campaign for issue 2, they want to get that too. Because the hardest thing for a creator, no matter what level you're at in comic books, because I talk to huge names all the time, and they have the same fear: is they start a series and they can't finish it. And that's my biggest hope, is if I can finish this. It's 7 issues, and I would love to see it through. But as a newer writer to people's names, I've been writing for a long time, but I'm new to the audience, right? I would love for them to just want to read the next one, because that's something that I haven't really got to see yet. Growing up was a one shot. Even if they liked it, there wasn't more there. And so this is almost like the Crucible. This is the Forged by Fire. I want people to want number 2.
Yeah.
No, I understand
That's
that.
yeah. It's great.
I think the book can do well on a comic book direct, to be honest.
I mean, I hope so. I want to put it there. I want to put it on the godforsaken TikTok shop. I know people are going to hate me for saying it, but I want to sell it there. I want to sell it anywhere people want to buy it. And it's not really about money. Like I am very far into the hole when it comes to comic books. I would love to make money because I have children and they need to be fed. So when you see my face and I say, I'm TS and I write comics, think about my children. When you go, I don't know if I want to buy his books. They're starving and that's on you. So think about that. But also, it just costs a lot of money and I want to be able to make more. So if I could sell enough to hire Sky to make issue 2, that would be a big boon for me because Sky's my co-creator. We split every dollar that's made down the middle. So 50-50. She gets paid every time I get paid, but also I pay her up front to create the book because she's a working artist and she's very much like further in her career than me. And she's working for companies and getting a lot of work. So if I didn't pay her, number one, she probably couldn't do the book. But number two, I know her time is just so valuable. And I wouldn't be able to compete. So I'm so far in the hole for it. Every possible sale lets me do another one. So don't worry about making me rich. You're not going to. The hole is too deep.
I like that you can go from serious conversation to it's your fault if my children starve.
It's a gift, or is it a curse? I don't know. I promise that I am earnest. I have to remind people in my real life that I'm not always being sarcastic. Like when I get earnest, sometimes they're like, "Hold on, was he joking? Is this like a bit?" And I'm like, "No, for serious. I hope you do well." And just everything I say sounds sarcastic.
I'm the same way. My friends think I'm joking, and I'm like, I just opened up to you.
That's you gotta look for the tears. If I'm crying, I promise it's real.
Yeah, I can't wait to see Chris cry.
It's not that hard, I promise.
I'll try tonight on 4.
Oh. I'm not hopping on fort with you tonight. What's wrong with you?
Chris.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So for my last question, what's a part of writing that you're still getting a hold of?
Oh, that's interesting. That I'm still getting a hold of. I would say ending a story, ending a part of a story, like writing an ending of a chapter, very easy to do. Writing an issue 2 for a little while was like a new thing to me because I had never sold an issue 1. But now I've done that. I've done all of the middling things. I've written endings before, but actually making sure I stick the landing because people care about that is still something I'm getting worked up about and something I'm still a little bit nervous because one thing that they don't tell you, especially if you're telling a serialized story, so people don't get the start to finish in one thing. They can fall in love with stuff that you don't expect them to, and especially getting out issue 1 to beta readers and issue 2 to people, and people are reading scripts for issue 3 and issue 4, and they're responding and liking things that I didn't expect, things that I didn't put I put my heart and soul into all of it, but things I didn't like count on them loving, and they're like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens to this character or what happens with this plot line. And now I'm like, oh no, that wasn't part of the plan for issue 7, right? And so trying to stick the landing and making sure that the things that they care about feel fulfilling to them and not just to me, because for a long time I only wrote for myself. So sticking the landing is still something that I'm really, really nervous about, and wrapping my head around adjusting on the fly to make sure that these new random things that people fell in love with, feel satisfying at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's something I'll work on as well.
Yeah. We had one more segment, but this episode did go a bit longer than our norm. So we're going to cut it and put it in the next time. It's funny because it was at the end of our last episode, and it was the first. It's still a segment that's media. Hasn't. So this is the second time we've attempted the segment for the first time.
What was the segment?
It's a hot take segment. But I don't think we have time to go around and explain all of our hot takes. I mean, TS, if you have a single hot take, go ahead.
Yeah.
But
my 3 favorite Star Wars movies are Empire Strike Back, Episode 8, and Rogue One, and which is probably the hottest take I could ever say on the internet.
Wow, I
mean, Rogue One, man. I love that movie.
Fucking love Rogue One, and I love The Last Jedi.
Last Jedi. That's
have not
that's one of
seen
my least favorite Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
I wish
That's
it would
wild.
have just
That
ended
must
with
be good.
the ninth
Yeah.
movie ended with just Rey instead of just saying Rey Skywalker. She said just Rey because fuck the Skywalkers. They fucked up half the galaxy. She's just Rey and she's good enough because she's wonderful.
Fair enough. enough.
So there's a hot take for you, and everyone can cancel me now. You're gonna get like 50 new subscribers just so they can hate on me. You're welcome.
Oh yeah. Appreciate it.
Thanks. You've been great.
We're gonna be
Been a
flamed as
great
well.
guest.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome having you.
It'd be great if like one day we're gonna probably ask you to come back on.
Anytime that
We
you're
can
willing
do
to
it.
have me, man. I love podcasting. It's something I had to leave behind to do more comic books. I used to run a podcast network, a lot of D&D stuff, and I've done podcasts for tons of stuff. I love doing it. I still have all the setup, so it's kind of cool to set it up and be able to record with you two. 3, Tom, if you're still there, thank you so much for waking
You
up a little
definitely
bit to
picked
talk
up
to me.
this episode.
Yeah, I really appreciated you showing up for 2
There's a
minutes.
reason we scrapped an episode for you. It's very good. But people at home, please, we're gonna put all the
Yeah, go
social
check out his
medias
stuff.
that in the comments. Yeah, we're gonna put the Comic Roundtable, our free at and TS's TikTok all in the comments. Definitely
On
follow
his
us.
website too
Thanks for
for his book.
staying along. What was that?
Add his website too for his book.
Yeah, go to
That's right.
campykillcreations.com. I'll send you the link, but campykillcreations.com. You can get all of my stuff. You could probably even find some of these old podcasts on there. You can find me at Campy Killed Comics on TikTok. I'm TS Comics. Please read everything I do. And again, if you don't buy my books, my children will starve.
They
Yeah.
will. It doesn't matter if you have the money. It matters if the books.
If you don't buy the books, they're starving. That's on you. That's not on me.
Yeah.
It's like you're gonna do the All-Star Batman and Robin method. Just put them in a cave and crash.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
No.
Oh,
Your
God.
wife's gonna be
That's
like
wild,
Alfred, try
man.
to give him a sandwich.
I promise I don't hit my kids or call them any slurs. And I don't drive the Batmobile. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I do. That every parent traumatizes their kids, but mine's more like my dad's a goober, and he's watching a lot of Digimon at like noon on a Tuesday.
And
that kind of trauma.
And on that note, goodbye, folks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Awesome
All right,
having you guys.
out of here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Catch you later, man.
All right, bye everybody.
Bye.
Bye.